because we're a similar size to many of the shops in the town of Huntingdon, and we looked at what retail was doing. And we kind of basically went, well, how can we kind of move a lot of these things that they're doing over to ourselves? We're a small building. We don't have much outside space. We have a little bit of space outside where, you know, it's enough room to do socially distanced queuing, but not much more than that. So, and we looked at the, you know, that and basically thought how we can apply that across. So we looked at things like having street labelling outside, and we did it. So it's sort of Civil War helmets. So it was fun, and it was like that. We did signage, and we tailored the signage also to the museum. So it's please stay at 2 swords lengths distance from each other. And in fact, actually, we've had a couple of kids who've actually brought wooden swords along with them so they can measure properly. Certain things we hand clean, so things like lift up flaps or push buttons. Other things that we had to take away, so things like dressing up materials, you know, the replica of Cromwell's hat, as lovely as it is, and that everybody wants to do that, because it's fabric, it can't be clean, so that had to come out. So it was simply thinking about this practically. So with discussions with colleagues and talking to AIM and talking to our county museums officer, and just thinking about it in a common sense way. I think it's there's a temptation to sort of get panic stricken by the enormity of it all and think that you've got to put everybody in a bubble wrapped suit, and actually you haven't. It's about simple, practical solutions, and actually once you do that and start breaking it down, it's actually far less terrifying than you think it is. One of the things we learned was be flexible about your approach, and we do a review every 2 weeks with our volunteers, and we involve the volunteers at every stage of the planning as well, looking at what we've done and what we've learned from it. So we actually found that we actually, you know, we put in, you had to clean every half an hour, and actually if you had half an hour when there weren't any visitors in, actually you didn't have to clean in that half an hour. Actually, we could be more flexible with the number of people we let into the museum, because it wasn't about the numbers, it was about the distancing between groups and households. And actually, therefore, you could allow more people in than we'd initially thought. In terms of the visitor profiles, changed slightly. Normally, about a third of our visitors are national UK visitors. About 15% are international. We get a lot of visitors who've heard of Cromwell, come from all over the world, and then about half are local. It's a similar amount of local visitors, but there has been a huge upsurge in terms of people nationally, so UK visitors. So lots of people doing the whole staycation thing. We're also interestingly finding that although our visitor numbers are down, the spend per head is up by about 20%. So those people who are coming out are spending a bit more at the moment. Yeah, don't panic. And the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, don't panic. It seems scary and it seems terrifying, but it's a matter of just thinking about it logically, applying common sense. You know, what you can do, which is the best solutions that will work for you. It's never going to be 100% perfect. But you know, if you do the best you can and put in things that are sensible and are reasonable, then you know, then I think you're more than covered, and people will be happy with that. And the other thing is just involve the whole of your team in that discussion. So you know, trustees, our volunteers, the town council who we work with as well, they've all been involved with the stages of what we've put in place, and as a result of which, kind of everybody's on board with it.
Yes, we have, because when we looked at the house, we looked at all the pinch points in the house, and one of them was the narrow doorway and stairs up to the upstairs gallery. So we just took the decision, at least for the opening, you know, few weeks, we would close the upstairs of the manor house completely. And so we've brought the solar art gallery, or a distilled version of the solar art gallery, which is in the eastern gallery of the manor house, which makes it sound enormous, but it's actually it's the eastern room of the manor house, and bring it downstairs. A distilled version of that is going to be in the house body. It also provides us with a sort of a system where we could create the one-way system in the downstairs of the house. So we've borrowed some screens from our key partners, Ilkley Arts, to build a sort of almost like a structure in the middle of the house body, which allows us to hang art, make it look beautiful, but also allows us to create a one-way system. So that's probably the biggest thing. Though we've had to take all the things away that normally the kids, our younger visitors, play with, but we are going to give them a giveaway activity bag, which we will give to them. Obviously seeking a donation, but we will give it away to people, that has things like crayons and chalk, so they can chalk on the courtyard. There'll be puzzle trails, colouring books, which a local artist has created for us. So activities they can do, both probably not in the manor house so much, because obviously that whole thing about interrupting the flow of people walking round, but they could do in the courtyard or take home and do. Had a Zoom meeting with our volunteers last night. Obviously we've been keeping in contact with them, but we brought them together last night just to talk about the plans for reopening and what their concerns were. And we wanted to seek their views about cleaning, face coverings, all these sort of things. And that was really, really positive. It was really quite uplifting for me, because they were obviously so appreciative that, you know, we were working hard to open the house again. I think there are some of our volunteers who are in the older age group who I think will be very cautious about coming back. And certainly our volunteer coordinator has a degree of concern, again, about the consistency of being able to cover the manor house every weekend with volunteers may become an issue. And that's why for September, the plan is that it will be run by the trustees and the staff members, and only using volunteers where we absolutely have to bring them in. And we're just going to see how it goes. I suppose it would be about giving things a go, because I do think at the moment, you know, the community and our visitors will be quite forgiving about things not being perfect. I mean, obviously you need to make sure it's safe. I mean, I'm not saying being completely cavalier about what you're doing, but I think you could give things a go. And if they don't work, you could just say, look, we've tried this, it just didn't work. I think the public will understand that. And so I think it really is a time to try new things, maybe things you've thought about but thought, oh no, that's going to be a bit tricky. I would just give them a whirl.
The main challenge for reopening is getting a building and a site, in our case, because we have a hall and gardens, that allows social distancing. And what we had to do in the end was open our back staircase, which is our our fire escape route normally. We've actually opened that and made that part of our visitor route, so you actually go up to the top floor via the back staircase, the servant staircase. Yes, for us, it's been a major opportunity. We had been looking for some time. We were our original ticket admission model was a single entry, and we did have an annual pass for the gardens, but not for the house and gardens. We've decided to flip that on its head and make all of our tickets annual tickets. Partly it was something we were considering anyway, but partly it was as a way of making people's money go further at a difficult time. We felt that it was something we could do to give back to the community. And that's proved really very popular. It's flipped our audience completely on its head. Previously, we were a very much older, retired couples as our main audience. Partly we haven't had them back because a lot of them have only just stopped shielding. But also we've seen a massive increase in our family audience. We've gone from 17% families to around 60% families. and a lot of those have repeated. Again, most of our visitors previously were just one-time, first-time visitors, or had only been in the last 5 years once. Now we've had families that have come back 6 or 7 times since we reopened at the start of June. And it's also seen a massive boost to our gifted income. We've moved from the charging 10% more to gifted to the annual pass model, and we've seen our gifted take nearly triple, which has been a major extra source of income for us at the moment. The key thing for us is tell the visitor what you can and can't achieve, and let them make a decision, and trust them to make the decision. So for example, when we opened the gardens, there are three main routes around the gardens, 2 of which can be done without touching anything, but 1 of which requires you to go around and open gates to let yourself in and out of. We toyed with closing that route off entirely, but it is, nearly half of our gardens are through, or half of our parkland is through that. It's very popular with dog walkers, so we didn't want to close it. So what we did was made very clear in our on-site and external marketing that this was a route which had touch points, that we couldn't clean those touch points. You can't go around cleaning a wooden gate after every single visitor. It's just not feasible. So we just made it very clear. We put on each gate that's what, we actually stapled a sign onto each gate saying this is a touch point that is not cleaned regularly. If you want to use it, you're welcome to do so, but it's at your own risk. And we did the same with all our external benches and all that kind of thing. And people who don't want to do it won't go around those routes. People who do want to do it and are willing to do that will do it. We've done the same in the house. You can't get away from going around without banisters, so we've let people make that choice. Either they kind of go up without touching it, or there's cleaning and an anti-bac at the top and bottom of all the banisters, but the choice is theirs, and it's made very clear. Some make it clear what you can and can't achieve.
So the opportunity of opening up the outdoor spaces, which is a new thing for us to do entirely, has been that we have met people that have never visited us before, who so we're surrounded on 3 sides with high-rise housing and flats, and we have met people from all of those blocks who have looked down on the museum for years from their flats but have never actually been in. I think what it's really shown is that with the car park full of children and activities, and the garden busy and the splash zone busy, the place from outside just looks really alive. So that's a totally new opportunity for us, and we're thinking about how can we take that forward. We don't want to lose that look. Instead of, when you look through the gate, you don't see a car park, instead you see children having fun, and that really sets the tone for the whole organisation. So that's been an enormous opportunity. We had some idea that that's what was wanted. We looked at the Alva research, and it really highlighted that outdoor spaces was the way to go. And so we brought that together, but it was a bit of a gamble. And I was so nervous the first day we opened in July, just thinking, is this actually going to work? And we got 49 people on our first day, which is a good day for us. We're tiny, so that's a great day for us. And it was like, oh, this actually does work. This is what people are after. And Gemma, who's run a lot of it for me, who looks after the learning side of things, wrote an amazing blog about her experiences of actually being on site and seeing family reunions happen and seeing friends see each other for the first time. And we've really created a space for people. So we were hopeful, but yeah, it's gone better than we ever expected. One piece of advice I would give is, once you accept that you can't do things how they used to be done, actually there's a lot of creativity and freedom that comes with thinking of how you're going to still do the things you love doing, and that if you relax into that and try to let those ideas flow, you come out with some incredible things. And we have we've taken a lot of advice on board, we've attended a lot of webinars, we've read things, but the big eureka moments for us have come from talking to each other and trying to think of creative solutions. And the each other is just two of us. So we talk and we think of something, and the day that we worked out how to do colouring in, you've never seen two people so happy. You know, we solved the colouring in problem, and it was brilliant. And it feels like, you know, we've got all these, made a big long list of everything we wanted to do, and we're like, right, every time we've solved one, we're like, yeah, solved it, yeah, solved it. Some of them we couldn't solve, but most of them we're like, yeah, we've actually done that. And that felt like as creative and as fun a process as you get in museums normally. It was no different from, you know, in doing some interpretation or building a gallery or putting a program together. Stopped seeing it as this kind of hideous thing that COVID was making me do.
I would say the main opportunity has been to showcase how well we can do by putting the measures that we've put in place. I wanted to make sure that the visitor perceived the site as being somewhere that was safe to come, pretty much from the front door, and that seems to have gone down really well. So we've invested in making sure that the floor stickers, for example, have been good quality, because I think that breeds confidence. I've taken a lot of time to go out and look at what other operators are doing in other sectors, and I pulled all the good stuff together from them, put the bad stuff to one side, and we've kind of replicated that at the site. Then we've got the one-way system around the site, which is actually not a bad thing, because it helps us to tell the story more effectively if people are following the route that we've set out. It's difficult to say because we're in our third week of opening, and what we are seeing, there's a fair few families coming through the doors. We would expect that at this time of year. We've not been able to sort of analyse any data at this point. I think it's fair to say we've seen our regulars come back. So the regulars that like to use the cafe and don't necessarily come into the museum, they're still coming to us, so we're seeing some friendly faces. I would say our approach has changed a little bit, so we're focusing a little bit more on the local market rather than further afield as we would usually do. And we opened with a very sort of, it was a soft opening, in fact it was a very soft opening, and we almost turned the sign on the door from closed to open. There was no fanfare with it at the beginning. We're starting to work on that now, and just putting the message out there to try and engage some of the audiences that we know would normally come through. Take all of the measures and do them as well as you possibly can. We are about bringing visitors through the doors, and we need to make sure as an industry that people are comfortable and confident in coming in, and that they feel safe, you know, and I think that's the most important thing at the moment.
Is that our site is physically compact, which makes creating distance between people from different households really difficult. So quite a few months ago, actually, back in May, we worked out that the only way that we could really reopen and operate in a COVID secure way was to change our operation from normal self-guided visits to 100% guided visits. So using our staff to guide households around the museum. A human being, a glorious guide, is one of the most flexible forms of interpretation you can have. They can bring all the enthusiasm of being a Roald Dahl fan, talking to the Roald Dahl fans that visit us. So that's how we're meeting that particular challenge. I suppose not so much surprised as relieved that visitors really have wanted to book, because you just don't know. You know, we know that people really love Roald Dahl stories and characters, and we know that the museum before COVID was popular. but none of us really knew how the public's attitude might have shifted. So we're really pleased that people are booking for the tours, particularly Saturdays and Sundays. All the Saturdays and Sundays that we've released so far, which is only about 6 weeks worth, they've all basically sold out, and we're selling guided visits really well on the Thursdays and Fridays. We're operating Thursday through Sunday at the moment. So we're really relieved about that. We've just put in some bits of fun graphic, floor graphics to help show what the route is without it being sort of, you know, you must go this way, you must go that way. We've tried to make it a bit more playful. We've added in a few things, including a few inside jokes to COVID, pointing out that as a very tall man, Roald Dahl's head was socially distanced by 2 meters from his feet. That's my favourite one. So we put a few of these around the site, and that's allowed us also to open up some of our workshop rooms, which aren't designed as galleries, but use them as part of the museum guided visit experience. Really happy. As far as I can tell, they haven't said that they're not. I mean, I think I've got a group of people here, and they really like doing their job, and they want to do something worthwhile, and that means opening the museum to visitors. So the fact that we're now able to do that, we've been open the time we're talking today for 2 weekends so far, has been really good for those involved. But it hasn't been everybody. And we've worked really hard to keep those who are still on furlough engaged, and reminding them that by being on furlough, they're making a real contribution to the museum, because we've been so reliant on those furlough grants. We were so reliant on visitor income in our pre-COVID business model. You know, 70% of income came from visitors, 30% from donations. And the reality of operating with guided visits is that our capacity is maybe 15% of that 70%, and that's just not going to be sustainable. So we're lucky, we're fortunate, we had built up our reserves in theory to fund a capital project, which is now in abeyance. So we haven't been in a complete financial crisis yet, but our financial cliff edge is as steep as anyone's. It just hasn't arrived yet, and it depends how the pandemic plays out over the autumn and the winter and into the spring as to where we end up. And it's not for me to say today, because I genuinely don't know, but I can certainly see a possible future which is, yeah, is scary. I guess the advice I'd give is what we've tried to do in reopening at all, even though, as I say, reopening for us isn't really economically viable. What it is visible. I think it's really, really important for museums to be visible, to show first to themselves, but particularly to stakeholders, to funders, to sector bodies, ultimately all the way up to government, as an example of a museum that's trying to survive. I think that's really important for us. It's given my staff purpose. I mean, we've all been in lockdown and affected by this for so many months, and we're all feeling ragged and worn out in different ways. So giving ourselves a positive, constructive task to welcome what few people we can to the museum. I don't mean to dismiss that with faint praise. It's really important for every single visitor that comes, and it's really important for us every time that we welcome somebody to the museum. So I'm really, really pleased about that. And I think being visible means sharing the positives, showing that you're making an effort, but it also means being realistic about the challenges. So we're asking our visitors to donate the price of extra tickets when they book, because we're telling them why we're in such financial challenge compared to how we were operating pre-COVID. And that isn't going to change in a hurry. So it's important that we keep making that point as calmly, but as seriously as we can. I think visibility, positivity, and reality, those are the things that I'd recommend all museums convey as often as possible to everybody they come into contact with.